because in the study of politics, 50 years is a small, it's not a big, it's not a long time in the life of a nation. Many nations like the Netherlands are older than, some 100 years, 200 years, 500 years. China has a 5 millennial history. Many of our smaller kingdoms had even longer periods of time that they existed before they were defeated by colonial powers. And the question is, what's special about 50 years? I want to thank you all also for coming. I thank especially again the organizers of the event, but I want to focus in doing a comparative study of in time and space of our country Nigeria, where we have come through. And since they have asked me to talk about Nigeria past, present and future, I'll be looking at our past briefly and our present, and then talk briefly also about the scenarios that face us. But in sum, what I want to say, in case you lose me, is the fact that what happens from now depends on what we do after living here as Nigerians. And my challenge and prayer is that we will do something different from what we've been doing before in the Almighty's name. I start by talking about the fact that we're a blessed nation. We are blessed by God with geography. We have all the vegetational, fauna and plant life and animal life in Africa. We are blessed with huge natural resources. Oil is the best known, but gas is more important. And we're told by the expert that there are even better things, such as solid minerals, tourist resources that still abound and are unexploited. In fact, in the economic literature, our country, Nigeria, Madam Chairperson, is regarded as a basket case of what they call a resource cost thesis. A resource cost thesis basically says that rich, blessed countries with resources do not make the progress that they should make. In fact, if anything, they tend to lag behind the others. It is a paradox because they should be the ones in the forefront. But it has to do with a number of factors that make it difficult for countries that are rich in resources not to make so much progress. In contrast to a country, like Japan or even our host country that do not have the kind of resources that we have, but yet are able to move forward. But God has also blessed us with a lot of human resources. I mentioned, for instance, some of the great Nigerian achievers. A number of them have been shown on the board, so I will not repeat this. In sports, we are the first to win the Olympic gold medal in Africa. And, also somebody who, showed this sometimes earlier in the week as part of this celebration in Wageningen, said that those who travel to Nigeria should be careful. Because if you are not careful, you will find that you come back with a wife. And that has to do with the fact that we have a lot of beauty pageants. And as you can see, some of the people that danced for us just now. But most importantly, we also have a lot of writers. We have a lot of movies made in Nigeria. We have a lot of music coming from there. A number of people who are religious, institutions globally. And, one of them heads our church, and of course there are several others that have also been shown. But what strikes me and what I think we should take away is the fact of our huge sense of humor. That as Nigerians, we have a huge sense of humor. And on the online, regularly I get a lot of these, messages that really make you laugh alone. One of them is, I'm sure some of you have seen those before, is a question that President Obasanjo, one of our former president, the last former president before, the President Yaradua, asked the Queen of England, why is it that everything works so well, here, and, we don't seem to have things work well in our country. So the Queen of England then said, well, let me give you a very small puzzle. when Prime Minister Blair comes in, I'm going to ask a simple question. If he's able to answer that question, it will give you a sense of why we move forward. And the question was very simple. And the question was, your father has a child, your mother has a child. This child is not your brother, and is not your sister. Who is he? President Blair thought for a minute and he gave the answer. Our president was so struck by the very subtle way and the immediate way in which he got the answer. So he took back to Nigeria and asked the same question from his special advisor on political affairs. And the special advisor, set up a committee. He said, Mr. President, give me 3 months to go and work on this assignment. Set up a special, committee, spent a lot of money traveling around the world, trying to find, if somebody is not my brother, is not my sister, who can that person be? Anyway, after a lot of dollars have been spent, it was found that they couldn't get the answer. They went to Ghana, and the man came back and said, I think it is President Jerry Rawlings of Ghana. Of course, you all know the answer. The answer is that it is you. If it's your father, your mother, it is not your brother, your sister, it's you. Yeah, but again, we spend a lot of money. But that's to show you how we spend resources in our country on things that should not, cost us money. But the reason why this happens is because we lost something that is important, and that is meritocracy. Merit system has been lost in our system of governance. I'll come back to that. Another one was the names of Nigerian churches, which was sent to me recently. And there are so many names. There's one that is called El Shaddai Shall Not Die, Evangelical Church. There's another one called Fire for Fire. There's one that, and again the names just runs. And I laughed and laughed. We have a huge sense of humor. No wonder we are told that we are one of the happiest people on earth. Why would we not be? Because when somebody dies, we celebrate. Across our country. When somebody, buys a new car, we celebrate. If you buy a Tokubo, we celebrate. If you build a house, we celebrate. If you just enter into a new house, we celebrate. We celebrate everything. So, Madam Chairperson, we are a very blessed people by God. God has done his own part. We cannot blame God for where we are if we are falling short in any way. We must blame some other people. So we look at our history, and so I take us through the history lane, and basically we say that Nigeria started very well. We had a big country, 154 million people, the largest concentration of black people on the face of the earth. God in his wisdom kept 400 nations. If we are in Europe, these nationalities will be nations of their own. We have 400 nations out of Nigeria. They are ethnic groups, they speak different languages, and that has been the basis of nations in Europe. And yet, God of heaven kept us together for 50 years. Indeed, we have cause to celebrate. Having said that, however, we need to wonder what happened. Because if you look at what happened to us at the beginning, everything seemed to be working so well, in spite of all our problems. Somebody said some time ago that Nigeria was a geographical expression, not a nation. And in spite of the fact that we are not a nation, we had some of the best brains in our civil services. Actually, I am a product of, in the Western Nigeria, free primary education that was started in 1955. And this was something that was successfully run by one of the state governments in Nigeria. Today, we are being told by the latest OECD studies that Nigeria will not achieve